Hello everybody, welcome back to yet another installment of Life Stories. My name is Trent and I hope you're doing awesome as always. Today, we got some more stories coming at you from Reddit/entitledparents. So, without further ado, let's get started. Our first story is titled, EM makes both me and my brother quit our jobs, but refuses to acknowledge she had any hand in it. My childhood was meant for this sub. It shall be my home away from petty revenge. To start with some backstory, my mom was an Air Force brat, and her dad wiggled away from being arrested for something terrible that affects her to this day. Not an excuse for what she did to us. She married a guy in the Navy and had my brother, Donald. That's not his real name, he's just a lot like the character. Over a year after I was born. Childhood was a picture-perfect example of being raised by a narcissist, and that's a whole other load of baggage I have to deal with. But not here. Y'all want to hear how she made us quit 2 separate jobs in the span of a month? You see, I was in community college and had no car, so I took the bus everywhere. Not the best public transit system ever, but for $30 you could get a monthly pass that allowed you unlimited rides for the month, and after 4 days to and from school, it paid for itself in savings. Donald worked for a very popular grocery store, and he got his preferred task of retrieving carts from the parking lot. He loved it, since he didn't really have to deal with customers, and the store was fine with having a guy who didn't mind harassing the bums who tried to take the carts off the property, since retrieving each cart actually cost them a fair bit. The trip to work from home took 45 minutes, same as the return trip, and he worked part-time at minimum wage. I worked for the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association at their Southwest Fisheries branch, and due to its location, it usually brought on student hires from UC. I worked for the Ictoplankton department, which includes larval fish, and it was my job to curate their historical fish collection, label, relabel, organize, and catalog their database, so the samples could be studied at length, since the data was used to track the health of each fish offshore. And the data was useful to the Fish and Game Department for what they could and couldn't do for the year to keep the fishing trade strong. I loved it, loved my boss, and ignored the UC hires who looked down on the community college girl. I took 45 minutes to get from school to work, and worked 5 to 5.5 hours a day, and was paid $11 an hour, which was a bit above minimum wage. The trip home after was another 45 minutes. Somehow, this reliable and paid work offended my mom, and she spent 3 months moaning and whining about it taking so long for us to get home and get to work. Wouldn't it be better to work closer to home, blah blah blah. While that may be true for Donald, the location he was at was hiring, and NOAA only had the one location in town. Anyone familiar with any bus system knows that there are also delays, buses arriving late due to traffic, relief drivers being delayed due to traffic, and other things, so it sometimes took an hour to an hour and 12 minutes to get home. Donald and I planned accordingly for arriving to work on time, and we both always got to our shifts early and clocked in promptly. Every delay on the way home was met with accusations of listening to music too loud or playing our portable games and not paying attention, to the point that every time she asked why we were home late, one day we both answered, "The bus didn't show up on time, and no, not because of the Game Boy." This answer was met with a hurt expression, and she rebuked that she was not about to ask that. Finally, I'd had enough, and I recorded her whine one day about the long bus trips and played it for my boss, who knew about Mom from the time in Girl Scouts, as both served in a local service unit for organizing programs for younger girls. She believed me, and despite it not being normal for the department, they arranged for a party, usually reserved when UC hires were done for their semester, to see me off properly. It was lovely, and I missed them all very much. I loafed miserably in my room until my final paycheck was mailed. I had only worked there for 7 months. She asked me what made me decide to quit, as if she weren't solely responsible for it. I told her, "Because I was tired of you whining about how long it took to get to work." Donald loved his job, but spending 6 hours on pavement took its toll, and he often bought insoles to minimize impact and strain caused by it, and was in fairly consistent low-grade pain. A mere 2 weeks after I quit, he quit, and Mom couldn't be happier, preening on about how good it would be to not have him angry at home because of the strain of work, but wondering why he didn't request to transfer to the branch that was a 7-minute walk away from home instead. "Because I was tired of you complaining about how long it took to get to and from work," he said. Dad believed the both of us and said he understood as Mom was being unreasonable. I gotta say, OP, it sounds like you had one of the coolest jobs ever. Getting to maintain records and learn about fish and stuff, that sounds awesome. Moving on, our next story is titled, "It may be the day before you get married. I know we divorced 27 years ago, but tonight is the night I get your father back." As the heading says, my parents divorced 27 years before this happened. It's always been civil on my dad's side of things. He had custody of us 3 kids and never said a bad word against our mom. My mom, however, blamed every negative thing in her life on him and/or my stepmother. I moved to England from Australia and ended up marrying the man I moved in with. Coming from Australia, my whole ginormous family was coming, excluding the woman who was now ex-stepmother. Chalets were booked, everyone was happy and excited. With my whole family coming, brothers, sisters, their partners, and children, aunts, uncles, etc., we'd all agreed to book in the same place and have a bit of a holiday/family reunion. This place happens to have its own little pub, run by 2 friends of ours. We spent the week sightseeing, doing wedding prep, and playing in the snow. A novelty for Australians, the first and likely last time they'll see it. The night before the wedding, we all decide to have a meal at the bar. The whole place is practically booked out with our group, so our mate running the place is quite happy. We all eat, drink, and be merry. Stories are told, laughs are had. Many at my expense, as I had been vehemently anti-marriage as a child. My whole aim in life as a child was to be a maths teacher in the army. Poor me, not only am I terrible at maths, but I also hate being told what to do, so this dream was always going to fail. Given that we were all heading to the wedding venue the next day, most of us retired at a reasonable hour. My husband-to-be and I merrily hiccuped our way to our chalet, singing Land Down Under, with my sister and her fiancé, who were in the chalet next to us. And now, we lay down to sleep, and gosh darn it, who the heck is calling at this time? It's about 4 hours later, 2 in the morning, my mate from the pub is calling and said we should probably come down there. I shove coats and boots on over my pajamas and set off. I get there, and there is my dad, doing his best to avoid my mom, who has decided that this is the moment. What moment, you ask? This is the moment she and my father get back together and all wrongs in her life are righted. She was drunker than that feral pig who broke into a campsite, drank 3 six-packs of beer, and tried to fight a cow. This is a true story. Google it. Dad didn't want to leave her at the bar alone, but he also didn't want to walk her back to her chalet and have her get the wrong idea, so he'd ask my mate to call me. I try and unwind her arms from him. She shrieks at me. Dad takes the opportunity to run away, and I'm left with her. It's only about 100 meters to her chalet, so I start to walk her home. She starts crying and telling me the following. "Your father loves me still. I know it." "Mom, can't you just stop and think about what you're saying? It's been so long since I had a man like your father. He satisfied me more than anyone I've been with. He's gotta..." "Seriously, no thanks. You can stop." She then proceeded to make a remark that I'm not able to read on this channel. At this point, I stop walking. I hold her shoulders, look at her very drunk eyes, and tell her that I do not need to know about her intimate life with my dad, ever. She bursts into tears and told me that I ruined it all. I ask her to explain. Apparently, my wedding was going to be the catalyst for her getting back together, and she was going to give this to me for my wedding present, having 2 united parents to hold my hand and walk me down the aisle. She then starts shouting that it would have all worked out, and I had to ruin it by showing up just when she was making her move. I sigh. I sigh again, and I sigh once more for good measure, and then ask her if she could please, just for this week, keep her stuff tidy and calm. I remind her that I'm getting married, and that I didn't really want to be standing ankle deep in the snow at 2 in the morning listening to her talk about manipulating my dad. Readers, she toddlered me. She sat in the snow, crying, and refused to move until I told her that she could get back together with my father. So I left her there. I believe the snow worked its wonders on her burning loins because she didn't bother my dad again about getting back together. Tragically, it didn't stop her general entitlement. She still made her best effort at the wedding to attention-seek and cause drama. Well, I can only hope that the wedding went well for you. Well, OP, I sincerely hope that the wedding went well, and I apologize profusely for the horrible mental images that your mom inflicted on you. Anyway, with that story out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time for today's episode. I want to thank all of you so much for tuning in to Life Stories once again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Reddit content coming your way. My name is Trent, and I hope to see you guys soon.